Something that I recently asked myself and something that I've noticed other people were asking was how to set up a clean UI, a clean functional UI in Final Fantasy XIV. The UI settings are pretty different compared to other MMOs, and there's a few settings within Final Fantasy that kind of are hidden that actually clean up the look of the UI pretty drastically. So I just wanted to jump in and show off kind of the thing that I came up with based on an image that I had found on a Reddit post that I'll link down below. So as you'll see, generally all of the information that I need is close to the bottom of my player character. I'm kind of zoomed out like this most of the time while in a raid, just so I can kind of get a clear idea of what I'm looking at. That way I can dodge mechanics or do whatever and still be able to see plenty of the screen. What I really want to draw attention to is the size of the actual overall abilities, the size of my HP and where it's located, my job gauge, the HP of the target that I have selected, and I wish I could show you the size of the cast bar, but the HUD view is kind of the best I've got for you. But I do have it set to display target info independently, and I have the progress bar set to 160. I'm kind of still playing around with this, so it might get larger. I can't foresee it going smaller. Cast bar is a pretty important thing. So I wanted to go over the reason that I have my abilities so small and kind of the actual overall layout of my abilities on my screen. So I have my abilities very small on the screen because it's not something you should be looking at while in a fight. Maybe a quick glance down to see the cooldown of an ability, and if you know where each of the cooldowns are, it makes it a little bit quicker. I have seen people make macros to double up on the icons to show off the cooldowns of longer abilities. Since you do need to know the exact global cooldown a lot of the time, based just for timing of specific abilities, it might not work the same way in Final Fantasy that it does in World of Warcraft. It was never something that I got into personally, but ultimately, if it works for you, you can find a way. I'd say it might make the most sense to just add the same ability onto another hotbar section right next to the ability that you use, and just don't assign it a keybind. And just kind of clump them up next to each other if that's something that you might want to do. That way it keeps all of the abilities out, but you can add the doubled up size to make it easier to glance down at. So on the left half of my bars, you'll see that they're kind of split down the center right here where the lock is. That is, the left side is the actual job or class abilities. The right side, I have a mixture of utility and role abilities. I also have a toggleable hotbar with macros that show a few different things. This one shows, it's kind of my quick select for my jobs. I have emotes, pets and mounts, and then I have my my way markers, signs, countdown, ready check. These two buttons here, they activate or deactivate the MSQ notification or the just the quests I have on the side. At the bottom here, I have my role abilities. I have one kind of utility thing for Gunbreaker, my sprint, my mount roulette, food, and my cabbage for my chocobo. I have my personal buffs up here in the top left. The reason it's kind of set off to the right a little bit is because this is where I have my my party and the limit break gauge. I could probably bring it down or move it a little bit. This is just kind of where I like it currently. I pretty much always adjust my UI if I notice that something is not working for me personally. If I find a UI that I like, I will kind of continuously tweak it until it's a little bit better and better for me. But this is just what I've landed on at the moment. I have my party list, my alliance list. This isn't super important information, but it's nice to see if I just need to get a quick glance up at the HP of everybody in my party. The limit break gauge isn't something that I typically use that often as a tank. There's a few encounters where a tank will use their limit break, but usually you'll use it on healers or DPS or yeah. I don't currently utilize my cross hotbar or my pet hotbar. My enemy list I do have pretty big, takes up a good portion of the left side of my screen. It pretty much takes up the entire space between the top chat bar and this little section here. I like having that pretty large just so I can add a quick glance. If there's anybody that I still need to pull aggro for, then I can just either click on them and get a ranged ability out, or I can quickly AoE and verify that I've actually hit all of the targets in that area. I keep my loot and party invite notices down here at the very bottom, kind of tucked away. The Gil inventory grid for soulbinds. I also have ACT sit right in this general area, high enough so that it doesn't take up any space if I were to open up hotbar 3, and also high enough up so that if I were to hover over something, the tooltip doesn't cut into ACT as well. If you don't know what ACT is, I'm not going to be the one to tell you. But anyways, so in an actual practical setting, most of the time I'm pretty zoomed out, and I have my my target HP bar very large and the cast bar very large. That way, while I'm in a fight, I can quickly tell what's being casted. I also have callouts from my static and a few other things. My debuffs are very large and right here in the center as well. So at a quick glance, if there's a debuff that I need to deal with in one of the raids, I can get a very quick glance and tell exactly what I need to do. My cast bar is right here by my feet, pretty much. One major thing that I don't know how often I see from other people's perspective, but keeping your similar like abilities in a general location, a generalized location. So I have R and Shift R as two of my dot abilities. I always have E as my jobs mitigation, and T is always Rampart. F1 is currently my enmity ability for my tanks. On my DPS, it's usually an ability that I don't want to hit by accident, but I need to be able to quickly hit when I need it. Same with tilde, or the tilde, whatever you want to call it. On all of my tanks, it is their invuln. And when I'm playing DPS classes, I usually have it as like a big hitting ability. On Ninja, I have it set as my ninjutsu ability. Z, X, and C are my AoE combo. Except for on Ninja, I have that set as my mudras. But in all cases, I always have my roll abilities down in the bottom right. Liniment break is always in the same spot. Sprint is always in the same spot. My mount, my food, my cabbage, they're all in the same location. That way, on any class that I'm playing, I can very quickly look and tell kind of what I'm looking at regardless of the class. And based on reading the abilities on each of the classes, I can pretty quickly discern what needs to go where on the hotbar. I kind of base everything now off of my gunbreaker since this is my current main class. I kind of keep in mind, okay, my middle mouse click is always my increased damage ability. That way I can just kind of quickly read an ability and throw it on a key just based on what it does without really having to think too much into it. And then when I click a button, I know what I'm supposed to expect. Whereas if you kind of just slap your buttons and abilities on each of your jobs, going to make it way harder to learn that job. So keeping it as familiar all of the time is super nice. Anything to provide consistency, really. But yeah, that's mostly it. Thanks for watching.